Hey everybody, it's Missy again, and I am back with another video for Scrap Academy as a guest teacher, and everything is all about mixed media this week. And last week I did a video showing gesso and all the things you need to know about gesso for scrapbooking projects, and today I was going to talk about sprays and mists. And there are a ton of different brands and styles and types of spray mists. So I'm going to show you some things that you can do with mists, the kinds that I use. And I prefer to use Shimmers, which is a small company, and I'm on the design team. I've been on that design team for 6 years almost. And I absolutely love the spray mists. There's a couple of different kinds. The ones I'm going to show you today, I'm just going to play with two colors that I really love, two different shades of pinks. This one has some shimmery effects to it, and this one is just a flat color. And so if you are new to mists or sprays and you do any kind of research, then you will find that there are a lot of them that do have shimmery powders mixed in with them. So when they dry, you not only see the color of the spray, but you also get this really pretty shimmery, glittery finish. And you'll also find lots of ones that have just flat color. You know, there's no shimmer at all. And some people like the shimmer, some people like the flat color. There are a whole bunch of different kinds out there. So I'm going to show you just some basic things that you can do with spray mists. If you like a big mixed media background, or if you just like a little bit of it, you know, the possibilities are endless when it comes to spray mists. So I'm going to start with just showing you a couple of different things that you can do with them. And this is textured white cardstock, and I've already put gesso on it. So if you've watched the gesso video, then you know what this is. You do not have to use gesso to use spray inks. I prefer to use gesso because I like to do a lot of blending and all kinds of different effects with the gesso versus the flat paper. So one of the things that you may run into when you use spray mist is a bottle getting clogged or the nozzle getting clogged. And almost always the best thing to do is to run it under some hot water in your sink or your bathroom, your kitchen, wherever. Take the lid off. This part here needs to get rinsed out, and then if you can, I take this out and flush everything out. Because if you're using a spray or a mist that has a powder in the bottom of it, and you know, when you store them, you want to sit them up like this, but over time the powder is going to settle to the bottom, and you know, it makes sense for sometimes for the powder to get clogged in the bottom of the nozzle. So always pay attention to that. It should be fixable. I don't think I've ever had a bottle that has completely gotten clogged up, and I've never been able to unclog it. But warm water and just very carefully undoing it, rinse it out, put it back together. It seems to work really, really well for me. Now, I know with shimmers, like I said, most of them, a lot of them have the powder in them, and so when you pick them up to use them, the powder is going to be settled in the bottom. Let me show you one that's got the powder in the bottom. I've got a bunch of them right here. Okay, here's one that's been sitting for a while. This is a yellow color. Do you see how the color is separated from the liquid? It's because all the powder is down here in the bottom. The best way to mix that up is not to just shake it. That's another good way to get the bottle clogged. I like to do it this way. I roll it in between my hands, and this does a great job of mixing all those powders up and getting them ready. I do it right side up, upside down, and now you can see all that powder is mixed up and the color is ready to go. So always be mindful of that, because you know, these bottles aren't cheap. These colors, these spray mists, you know, if you're spending your good money on them, you want to treat them right. You want to mix them up right so they don't get clogged and messed up. And that's what I would advise for maintenance. I always try to store them up so they're not leaking, because you definitely don't want to go to get it one day and it's on its side and all the color has leaked out. That would break your heart. It would break my heart. So first and foremost, one of the most simplest things you can do with a spray mist is just spray it right onto the paper. So just like that. Now every nozzle is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes when you spray it, it may spray in a perfect little spritz circle, kind of like this. Sometimes it may spray more splotchy or into an arc. It just depends on what's in the nozzle. So if you spray it and it sprays in a strange shape, you may need to go run it under warm water to fix whatever may be blocking the little hole right there. But that's your standard spray. You could leave it just like that, put your picture on it, and just have this splatter effect, because you can see here the bulk of the color, and then it's going to kind of get thinner as it goes around the edges, and you get that natural spray effect. Now this is pooling up like this because I use gesso, and we talked about that already. Something I like to do when I spray it on like that, I like to take a brush with some water and maybe blend it. This is totally an option. You don't have to do that, but I like to kind of give it that watercolor effect. But you obviously can get that sprayed look. Another thing that you can do is layer another color on top of that. This is obviously, yep, there's the powder. Mix it up. You can blend by spritzing another color on top of it. Leave it as is. Add a little bit more. Help it splatter, or not splatter, spread around. But you still get that spray effect around the edge there. Another thing that you can do that's really fun to do with spray inks is use a stencil. And this is super easy to do. If you have any kind of stencil, this is just a 6x6. It's a smaller stencil. Put it right down. I'll use this yellow color that I have mixed up here. Lay the stencil down. Just spray right. Let's mix. Let's mix and match. Why not? And you get a fun shape. You just have to be careful that the spray, if you only want, you know, a portion of the stencil, be aware that if you spray it, it's going to probably stretch to the outside of the stencil. So you may want to cover that up with a paper towel or something if you don't want it to go beyond the stencil. But look how cool that looks when you just spray two colors on top of each other. You get that really fun blending effect. And all I did was spray that down. I mean, I did nothing else there. And you can see how cool that looks, just blending the two colors. Stencils and sprays are awesome. And then here's something else that I love to do. I just use the stencil, okay? Look at all the spray that's on top of the stencil. Flip this over and use it as a stamp. And you're going to get the opposite effect of what you just did when you sprayed it on. If you don't want to rub your hands on it, get a napkin and just lightly press it down. So you basically just made your own fun stencil stamp. And when you pull it up, you get a really cool effect. Didn't even have to add any other color to it. This would look so cool on a background. And it's the same stencil, but look how different it looks. So here you get the squares filled in, and here you get the outline. And there's still some ink on here, so do it again. Keep going. And then these are easy to wipe off. So yeah, but you get the effect, you get the idea there. I love that. And it's so much fun to mix colors, mix and match. Love that. If you want to take it a step further, if you like this, but you wanted to blend a little bit of the edges, since you use the gesso, you could do that to make it look a little more spready and blendy. Those are not words. If you watch any of my other videos, you know I make up words a lot. And they don't really make sense, but you kind of know what I'm talking about. But yeah, you get the idea there. I love using stencils. I actually haven't done that in a while. This is getting me in the mood to do that again. Let me get another piece of paper here. I've already got gesso on this as well. So now I'm going to show you a very popular technique. I'm sure you've seen it, you may have done it. It's another very fun, easy, and fast way to get spray mist on your paper without spraying. And this is a lot more of a controlled way. And this is the plastic packaging technique. This is just some plastic that some stickers or some die cuts came in. Nothing fancy at all. And I'm going to take my spray ink again. You have to be careful here because you know when you spray it's going to splatter a little bit. But you just spray right onto the plastic, and if that's not enough you could spray more. You could add a little bit of water to it if you wanted it to be a little bit more. And all you do for this technique is turn the plastic over and smush it down, and then you just work with it, and however big of an area that you want. But look at the effect you get. You get this really fun splattering effect, and the edges look totally different than they would if you were to use a brush. Now the fun thing about this is you can go back. Let's see, let's add some of this yellow. I'm going to use the same plastic, just give it a little spray. Come back, do the same thing. I like to blend colors, so pink and yellow make orange. And if you don't like the shape of that or the way it looks, you can extend it with a brush, or you can add water. You can dry off your plastic and start fresh and go back and spread it out a little bit more. Just keep playing with it. It's very forgiving, especially if you use the gesso first. But yeah, see, now I get a little bit of pink, a little bit of yellow, and then orange where they blended together. But it's just this fun watercolor effect, and you don't even need a brush. You know, if you were to use a brush, you're going to get that brush stroke look, and you may want that look. It just depends. I love using the plastic packaging. I have used the plastic so many things, and I know so many people do that technique and absolutely love it, and it's awesome. If you don't want to use plastic, another thing that you can use, and this is my very old stained stamping block, little acrylic block that you stick your stamps on to stamp, you can use that instead of plastic packaging. Same idea. Here, let's use this other pink. Same idea. Just spray some onto your stamping block. Smush it down, and you get a whole different effect. You still get that splotchy look, but it's just in a different shape, different amount. You can mix and match pinks here. Go over it as many times as you want. Completely different effect. So just think outside the box when you're using spray mist. You know, there's more to it than just spraying right onto the paper if you think about it. You know, if you're willing to get a little creative and think of other ways to use it. I love using the stamping block, and I love using the plastic. And you can see you get a lot of the same effects. The outer edges are a little bit different. You could do this, you know, if you have a circle stamp block or a big stamp block, same thing. Works really, really well. I love that look. So random, and you're never going to get the same shape twice, you know? So it's really, really fun. Another way that you can do this, let me turn my paper. If you want to treat spray mists as watercolor, you can do that. You know, if you don't want to spray or stamp, you can put a little bit on a stamping block here or your desk, whatever it won't soak through, a little paint tray. And you can use it as watercolor. Just put your brush in there, and instantly you have some watercolor. So spray inks go a long way. Very, very versatile in the options of things. You can add water, you can water it down. You see here the difference in using a brush versus the plastic packaging. You just get a different look. So don't feel like you are limited to just spraying. You know, these work great as watercolors. You get the same color, just using it in a different way. Another thing that I love to do with my spray inks is splatters. I know you've seen layouts with splatters. All that is, unscrew it, take out the nozzle, and you just go splattering. And there's no perfect way to do this. I have discovered that sometimes you get the perfect splatters and sometimes they go in the wrong place or they look a weird shape. If you splatter onto something that's wet, chances are it's going to start to spread and bleed like that. But if you splatter onto a dry part, you're going to get these nice circles. And sometimes you kind of have to, you know, tap it on there, manipulate it a little bit if it goes into a wonky teardrop shape or a shape that you don't want. See how those two kind of blended together. But I love creating splatters. And what happens is if I get splatter crazy on my project before it dries like this, I'll just take my brush and kind of blend it in. And the gesso, I say this a million times, the gesso is what allows all of this nice blending and spreading to happen. Because if you take the spray and you spray it right onto your paper with no gesso, it's going to be pretty much permanent the way it lands. You're not going to have that flexibility to add a brush to it and kind of splatter the color, or not splatter, spread the color around. And you know, everybody's different. If you're only going to use a tiny bit of the spray, you may not need gesso. But yeah, these are the main things that I do with spray mists. I like to do all of these techniques. I think they're all fun. They all give you different looks. So I hope that this gives you some ideas. If you've never used mist or sprays, don't be intimidated by them. You can get some really fun effects from them, whether they have shimmery in them or not. Half the time, I'm not really going for the shimmer effect. I'm going for the color that I want. And I suggest just playing around with them. You know, get yourself a couple of different colors that you like, a couple of different colors that may blend together nicely. Like when these two colors blend together, I get this nice orange effect. So if you want to try mixing and matching and blending, you know, get a couple of colors that will blend well together. Try some stencils. Try the plastic packaging. Just experiment with it and play around and see what you can come up with. So I'm going to show you a couple of layouts that I've made in the past using these different techniques, and just kind of give you some different ideas to try, and hopefully this will help you out. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm also going to make a new background at the end of this video to show you some of these techniques in action. So thank you guys for watching, and here comes some sample layouts. So for this page, I used white cardstock as the background, and I sprayed the inks directly onto the paper and then used a brush to kind of help blend them together. This one I used a stencil from Just Nick Studio, cut it on cardstock, and then used different mists and things to spray on top of it. This one I used the mist on white cardstock. I cut the wreath into a cut file there and then used spray inks on top of that to give it the pink color. This one I did the packaging technique on the background and directly sprayed and splattered to create that pink orange color. This one was packaging technique in pinks, blues, and yellows, and then I embellished on top of it. Love those colors. This one I sprayed directly onto the paper after I used glass bead gel through a stencil to create some really fun texture. This one was interesting. I sprayed the colors on some plastic and then turned my cardstock over and stamped it down on top of it instead of the packaging, kind of a reverse packaging. This one I sprayed onto the cardstock and then used a brush to help smooth it around, kind of in a rainbow color scheme there. This one I sprayed directly over a stencil to create that fun mixed colors, or mixed color on the background there, and that was pretty easy to do. This one was packaging technique and spraying directly onto the paper after I did some gesso and some modeling paste. This was definitely spraying directly over a stencil to get a nice square effect there, a little small grid stencil. And then this one I sprayed over chipboard that I cut and coated with white gesso, and then used pink, yellows, and blues to cover it up to make some interesting shapes. So real quickly here for a few minutes, I'm going to create a new layout and a new background using spray inks. And I've chosen a couple things here to use. I picked out some stickers from a Heidi Swapp sticker book to determine my color scheme. And then I went through all of my shimmer sprays. And again, you don't have to use this particular brand of spray inks. There are a ton of different companies and brands, but Shimmers is just the one that I prefer. So I'm using some textured white cardstock here. I'm going to coat it with clear gesso to prep the paper so I can do lots of blending or whatever I want to do, and it's not just going to soak right through the paper. So while the gesso is drying, I pulled out some scrap cardstock that I've used here for some cut files, and I want to take these circles. They are basically different color months of the year. So each one is a different month, and I don't know where they're going to go yet on the layout, so I'm going to put them on some of this scrap cardstock and then cut them all out. So I have die cuts, you know, instead of stickers, and then I can move them wherever I want, because I don't really know what I'm going to do for the design of this page. I just know it's going to have these colors and it's going to have these circles, and I'll worry about the rest later. I changed my mind. I had a starburst stencil there at the beginning, but I changed my mind since I had all these circles. I thought I would go with this very well loved and very old circle stencil. So I'm going to use that and just do the tried and true spraying right on top of the stencil, and just show you how quickly you can make a background with cardstock, sprays, and a stencil. And you can do this with any stencil, any colors. So I'm going to just stick the stencil right on top of the paper and then mix a couple of colors right on top of it. And instantly you get this really cool effect. Just in case you're interested, the colors that I'm using on this background, all from Shimmers. I'm using Vibe Sweetheart, which was the pink that I sprayed first. The yellow that I added is Coloring's Little Yellow School Bus. And I tried to use my Well Blew Me Down here, but I obviously need to clean the nozzle because it's an old bottle, and I just need to clean it. So I went over that with Hint of Mint, which is a spritz. And this is still damp since I added the gesso. It's not soaking right through the paper. So I'm being very careful about where I'm putting the stencil, because I didn't want the teal color to blend in with the pink. I wanted to try to keep that separate, but I wanted to expand the pink area. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter and use Spritz Cotton Candy. And I'm okay if it smudges a little bit. You can kind of see there where the circles, where the stencil kind of got on top of the wetness of the first layer that I sprayed, and it kind of smushed it. I'm okay with that. If you're in the frame of mind where you want your circles to be perfect, or your stencil, whatever the shape is, to be perfect and crisp, don't lay it back on top of something that you just sprayed like that. I am okay with it looking kind of messy and wonky, and if a part of it gets smushed and turned into like just a blob of watercolor, I'm okay with that. But if you are, you know, I know some people don't do mixed media because it turns out imperfect like this. You know, just be careful when you're doing it. I kind of like it when it looks imperfect. I like when it looks kind of smushed like that. But I was trying to be careful and not have the colors blend together too much. This color here is kind of a coral color. It's called Mango Tango. And I just went through all of my shimmers and tried to pick out the colors that match those circles. And I don't have all of those colors, but I really like how this is looking. I think it's a cool and interesting background, and it's going to look neat when I start to work with it here. So yeah, some of the circles turned out perfect. Some of them kind of smushed, and I still like it. I think it looks neat. It looks original. And I think the colors are really pretty. Most of it is dry. There's still a little bit of it that's wet, but I chose this photo of my daughters that I had already printed out to use on a previous layout and wound up not using it. And it's basically just an everyday shot of my kids in the back seat coming home from school. And I just wanted to talk about how that's pretty much my everyday view in the back seat, and kind of play off the months of the year stickers and go with that theme. And once I put the photo down there, I added a little bit more pink to the right of it because I felt like I was covering up a lot of the pink and I wanted it to show. And since I did use the gesso, see where I smudged a little bit of the pink circles there? I can do that anywhere on this background here if I wanted to, because the gesso allows the water to kind of reactivate the color that's already on there. So that's the beauty of gesso. You have that freedom to kind of do that before it officially really dries. So I just thought I would play around with the placement of the circles and attempt to do a little bit of a tone-on-tone effect here, which means I'm going to put the yellow circle in the yellow section and the pink stuff in the pink section. And it's not perfect, but I just thought I would start with that, and I liked how it looked. I don't really have a lime green section or a dark green section, but I think it's fine. I like how this is looking. I like that it's kind of random and scattered, and how each circle represents a month of the year. And I thought it was a fun little design idea. And once I put all the circles on there and decided that's where they wanted to go, or that's where I wanted them to go, I felt like the yellow needed to be expanded a little bit. So I'm going to come back in with the stencil very lightly, add a little bit more yellow, and I can dab up whatever I don't like because I use the gesso and it allows me to do that. I'm going to pop up all of the circles using some adhesive foam because I love making things dimensional on my layouts, especially on a mixed media background. I think that it just creates the coolest effect. Just something simple as adding some dimension underneath your die cuts or your photo, it can make a big difference. I'm going to add a little bit of layering. I've got some random things from my stash bin. I think that is a Pocket Life card from Hip Kits from, I can't even remember which month, but the colors matched, so I'm going to use that as a layer underneath there. And then I'm going to go back through the Heidi Swapp sticker book. I don't even think I showed that on this video, but it came in a Hip Kit several months ago. It's this giant, well, it's long and skinny, but it's thick. It's got a ton of stickers in it. A lot of clear stickers, a lot of gold stickers, just all kinds of things. And I'm going to use that primarily to embellish on this layout. I didn't want to add too much more because I didn't want to cover up all the background. I love all those circles, so I'm going to kind of embellish around that to make sure that the background is still visible, because you know, you spend all this time making a background and getting it just so, you don't want to cover all of it up. And some of it does get covered up, you know, that's just the nature of making a scrapbook layout. Stuff is going to go on top of it, but I don't film the entire process of this because the main point of this was for me to show you the background. So I'm going to have the final shot of my finished layout coming up here in just a second, and you'll be able to see how I further embellished with things. And my title is Everyday Backseat View. And then I just added some little things from that sticker book around, and I like how it turned out. I think it's simple. I think the background was very easy to make, but it's I'm stuttering here. It's interesting. I like the colors, and it wasn't very complicated to make. And that was the point of me showing you this background, was to show you that you can customize using spray mist to pretty much make whatever you want. You know, and I hope that the earlier part of this video gave you some ideas to try, and just to show you that mists and sprays can be fun, and you know, you don't have to go crazy with them. A little bit can go a long way. And yeah, please let me know if you have any questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this and got some motivation or some inspiration or some ideas to try. So thank you so much to Scrap Academy for having me, and I will see you guys later.